Guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something super cool to take a look at, and actually not just one figure, but we have two, as we have the Pyroraptors from the Toymonster International Captivz Jurassic World Dominion line. The figures that we have here are actually the supersized version as well as the standard version. This standard version had come from Wave 2. I do want to give a shout out to a few people here in this video that were responsible for me acquiring these. The smaller, more mainline version of the Pyroraptors, thanks to my good friend Matthew, and the larger one is thanks to a trade that I did with my new friend Oscar, who was able to hook me up with that one again in exchange for some Captivz that I had. So definitely excited to have these guys, especially the supersized version of the Pyroraptor, as those figures are actually quite hard to find down here in the United States. He is from Canada, so I guess they're a little more available up there, or at least I would assume, because he did have this one again to trade me. So unfortunately down here though, we can't seem to find these at all. But I was really psyched to actually get a hold of these because I really wanted the more regular, normal painted version of the Pyroraptor, and up until this point I have two different versions of it. One is that red metallic version, one is also the amber version, so I now finally have the regular painted, movie screen accurate versions, and both look really cool. You can see some differences between the two as far as the positioning of the tails, but I don't think that there's too much difference outside of those areas. But again, as per usual, the only way to truly tell is to go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at both of these right now. So we will begin with the larger version, the supersized version. If you take a look here at the head sculpt, you can see that that is a beautiful looking head sculpt and really quite, as far as I can tell, screen accurate to the way that it looks in Jurassic World Dominion. Maybe not coloration wise perfectly, as we have some really nice bluish dry brushing here over the face of our Toymonster International version. I don't really recall the Pyroraptor having that bluish color in the film, but maybe it did and I just didn't take notice to it. But you can see again that we have some nice color variation, as we have a darker gray in there and then again a nice blue dry brushing, and it just kind of highlights the skin detail here as well as some of the feather detail quite nicely of our Pyroraptor. You can see the nostrils there at the tip of the snout. You can also see we have a nicely painted eye with a yellow and a black pupil. The mouth is sculpted in an open position. You can see a nice very realistic tone of color there for the inside of the mouth of our Pyroraptor, as well as a nicely sculpted out tongue. The teeth are all sculpted kind of together, but they look pretty good. You can see they're very small, which is nice to see that they didn't make the teeth oversized or anything like you often see on many different Jurassic World toys, so that's definitely a plus. A little sloppiness as far as the eye paint goes on this side, but not too bad. As you start to lead back here into the back of the head, the camera goes out of focus, but you can also see again those feathers that kind of lead off of the back of the head of the Pyroraptor, just like you see in Dominion. They look pretty nice here on this version, this Toymonster International version. You can also see a little bit of kind of scruffy feathering as you lead down the back of the neck right there, as well as some more really nice skin texture here running along the bottom of the throat. You can also pick up on the throat itself, and again more of that similar color to what we had just seen on the face with the dark gray body color and then that bluish dry brushing. And as you move through the course of the figure, you can see that the feather detail looks really nice, but it's a little hard to pick up on at certain points. However, once you let the light hit it, you can really take in how nice the feather detail looks. I feel like up here on the back, it's, slightly muted compared to what it should look like, and the entire thing has kind of a glossy look as far as the feathered areas, so that as well kind of at times can shine the detail away. But as I let the light hit it very slowly, you can really make out how nice the feather detail looks. And one huge plus to the Toymonster International version is we have that beautiful plumage leading out here onto the arms, something that the Mattel version failed to include. But this Toymonster International version did capture that, and they captured it beautifully. And I think just due to that aspect, it makes the Toymonster Captivz version the most screen accurate Pyroraptor that is out currently. And you can see again as you lead down those feathers, the feathers of the arm are absolutely gorgeous looking, and you also have that reddish tone running down the arm, but you also have that same coloration to what we saw on the face, where we have that kind of dark gray and then the blue dry brushing, and there's also a little hint of a reddish brown that runs along the border point between the red and then the dark gray and blue. You can see a little bit of a reddish brown. You can also see here on the inside of the hands, if we open the arms up a little bit, you can see the hands themselves, the fingers and everything, very nicely sculpted out, and again more of the same as far as the coloration goes here on the inside of the arms of our Pyroraptor. Moving back into the stomach region, you can see some more of the feathering up here, but you can also see again more of the skin texture in the lower part of the stomach, as well as again more of that brownish variation in there. Really nice looking feathers as you reach back here into like the upper thigh, into the hip region, and the figure also has a nice dark wash, so it really highlights the feathers quite beautifully. And as you lead down into the leg, again we transition back to the dark gray with the blue, but the blue dry brushing only lasts for so long before you reach like the calf muscle, which is very nicely elaborated, and then we transition entirely to that darker gray, and you've got that nice looking foot sculpt, kind of like some scoots down the toes. Nice sickle claw over there. If my camera would stay focused on it, really does not like this figure for some reason. But I don't notice any specific nail paint. It looks like the nail paint is just the same dark gray that we have for the feet, but that's probably the type of coloration that the Pyroraptor had in the film, so that's completely okay. As you lead out here into the tail, you can continue to see how nice the feather detail looks, and also how cool looking and erratic the kind of tail feathers are. As you lead out, you can see that the red runs down the center of the tail, but the actual tail feathers all have that dark gray with the blue dry brushing look to them. And again, very erratic looking as far as the feather detail. Like, those feathers are just all over the place, which I think is a really nice dose of realism for the figure. And the fine detail of the feathers as well actually looks pretty nice. Not super crisp, but definitely nicely done. You can see the underside as well, again sports that same darker tone with the blue dry brushing as you lead here along the underside of our Pyroraptor, and again you have that Jurassic logo in there. So really nice looking. You're not going to see much difference honestly over here, because one thing that is kind of interesting about this figure that you don't see too often on the Captivz figures is the fact that it's in kind of like a neutral pose. Like, it's almost like a concept art drawing as far as the very neutral pose, or like a maquette or something like that. So you don't see too much movement or anything over here on this side compared to what you would see on the previous side. And then the smaller, more mainline version that again is included in Wave 2, and there is a version of this in Wave 3 as well, looks to pretty much be the exact same figure but at a much smaller size. And I think that the dark wash is a lot more abundant here on this one, and the bluish dry brushing isn't quite as intense in the face, so kind of a little bit of a plus, I think, for the more normal sized version over the larger one. You can see a little hint of sloppiness there in the eye paint, but the coloration outside of that, everything looks to be pretty much the same. The eye color is the same. We have that same type of a look with the dark gray and then the bluish dry brushing. The teeth are really nicely painted with a white, and actually quite nicely painted for being so small. You can see they are impressively well done from a paint standpoint. And then you have the same tone of color for the inside of the mouth. The coloration of the entire body, again, is that really nice reddish tone, and you continue to have that same type of paintwork for the feathers and everything with the very dark gray and bluish dry brushing. Though one thing I'm picking up on this one that I did see on the other one that I'm not seeing in this one was that kind of brownish tone in certain areas. We don't really see that here that I'm noticing on this version. And again, the entire figure from this point forward looks pretty much exactly the same as the larger version. You see that you have the same type of coloration and everything here down into the feet. But one thing that is different about this one compared to the supersized version is once you lead out into the tail heads totally upward, and that's not what you see on the supersized version. And to show you that again, you can see that the tail is straight out on the supersized version and pretty much almost straight up for the more mainline Wave 2 version. The coloration and everything stays the same here out onto the tail. The sculpt and detail looks pretty much the same as well, as far as how erratic and awesome looking the feathers look out there on the tail. But yet again, you can see how the entire figure kind of has like that neutral pose, yet again almost looking like a maquette, which is really cool. Something that would have been used for the film, for the creation of the Pyroraptor. So it's really cool to have, again, a smaller version and a larger version, and I'm beyond excited to finally have these now in my collection. As far as articulated areas for the Pyroraptor, it's pretty much your standard when it comes to those Captivz figures, due to the fact that they are a pop and lock. You can see that we can move the neck, and you can also swivel and move the tail. And that's it. It's exactly the same articulation for the larger one as well as the smaller one. And you can also see they stand very nicely, but that's, of course, due to the fact that the arms there are touching, or at least the feathers of the arms are touching. As far as the size goes, for a length on your standard version, you are looking at about the 3-inch range, or maybe a little bit under, or around 7.5 centimeters. Height-wise, the highest point's definitely the tail, and you're looking at about 2.5 inches, or around 6.5 centimeters. Height-wise, for our supersized version, you were looking at just shy of 2 3/4 inches, or about 6.5, closing in on 7 centimeters. And now I knocked it over. And then for a length, you are looking at about the 5 3/4 inches, or around 14.5 centimeters, maybe a hair over. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Pyroraptors, and you can definitely see that even though it is the supersized version, it's still pretty small. You can see it's roughly around the size of, or maybe a little smaller than, an Attack Pack type sized figure. And of course, the standard version is much smaller than all of those because the Captivz minifigures are quite small yet incredible. But for another comparison, there is a Mattel Pyroraptor with the Toymonster International versions. So you can definitely see that the Mattel version is the largest of them all. And you can see that we just kind of decreased in size when we hit to the supersized version down to the normal version. But you can also tell that as far as screen accuracy goes, the Captivz version totally blows the Mattel version out of the water. So a little bit of difference between the two, but I'm kind of partial to this Toymonster International version just because overall it looks a lot more like the Pyroraptor does in Dominion. And then for one final comparison, as well as kind of a standoff, we have the mechanical arm baryonyx as far as the supersized version and the standard sized version next to our supersized Pyroraptor and the standard sized Pyroraptor. Quite humorous though that looking at the Pyroraptor and baryonyx together there, because the Pyroraptor is quite a bit larger than a baryonyx, but the supersized baryonyx is a little bit larger than the supersized Pyroraptor. So if you happen to have any of the other figures that you see here, hopefully this will help to give you, again, a pretty good idea of the size. So this brand new Jurassic World Dominion Toymonster International supersized Pyroraptor and standard sized Pyroraptor are two really nice looking figures. Honestly, I adore both of them. The coloration isn't picture perfect to what you see in Dominion because I don't really recall there being quite so much blue on it. However, excluding the, slight difference in color, the paintwork of the figure is fantastic, and I feel like for the most part they definitely captured the appearance of the Pyroraptor as far as the coloration goes, and I would actually love to get another of these that I could repaint, especially the supersized version, because that would be a little bit easier to repaint than the smaller version. But again, sculpt-wise, these are easily the most accurate Pyroraptors I've seen on the market when it comes to the Dominion version. The sculpts are really, really nicely done, really highly detailed, and they have all the elements of the Pyroraptor that many other people miss, like Mattel, when it comes to the feathers on the arms, as well as the very nice-looking tail feathers and everything. So as a whole, sculpt-wise, they're probably the best Pyroraptors out there. Honestly, paint-wise, I would say they're probably the best Pyroraptors I've seen as well, because the coloration that is applied is very nicely applied, and we also have a nice dark wash to highlight the detail on both of them. So, in my opinion, again, the best Pyroraptors out currently from anybody when it comes to a Dominion-style Pyroraptor. So if you are interested in picking these up, as far as the smaller kind of standard wave version, I would say check your local Walmarts. If you find the Captivz Dominion eggs that have that kind of blue packaging to them, those are the Wave 2 figures. So that's where you would like to look for this Pyroraptor. As far as the supersized version goes, though, unfortunately, I'm not too sure where you could locate that one here in the United States, because I have yet to see it actually show up anywhere. But if I can find somewhere where you could purchase that, I'll definitely let you know in the description. Again, you could probably check eBay, as that's most likely your best bet as of right now. One way or another, though, if you have the opportunity to pick these guys up, I really recommend it because they're both fantastic. So make sure you do that, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.